Aloha mai kako. My name is Brianna Govea. I'm curator of collections and programs for the Judiciary History Center. I want to mahalo everyone for joining us here today. And mahalo also to our new Chief Justice, Vladimir Devins, the Hawaii State Judiciary and Legislature for providing space for us to gather here in the beautiful Supreme Court courtroom and have an honest conversation about the state's criminal justice system. While the Judiciary History Center hosts diverse discussions, the speaker's remarks do not necessarily represent opinions of the Hawaii State Judiciary, but we mahalo all of you for sharing your personal stories today. Friendly reminder that the program is being recorded. We have a few dozen people joining us on Zoom also, so I encourage you to submit questions or comments via the Q&A chat box in your Zoom webinar screens, and we'll leave some time for audience Q&A also here in person at the end of the program. And the program will be on our YouTube channel by tomorrow too, if you'd like to share. Mahalo again to our program partner, Lauren Walker from Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice. This is a second panel of a little series we've done this month. And I want to welcome Lauren up to the podium to introduce our moderator.
Aloha, and it is really an honor for me to be introducing Kimmy Takata, who I've known since about 2008, when I met her bright face at the women's prison. And she was in some programs that we had there and subsequently in a lot of programs. Kimmy has the distinction of escaping from the Ko'olau, the kids' prison, twice, and then from OCCC once. And that shows you how smart she is. She's really smart. And so because of it, she, I think, was kind of targeted by the system. You know, they didn't like that. They don't want you to escape. And but to her benefit and to all of our benefit, actually, Kimmy went to school. She went to college, and she learned to read in prison, and she got her GED. She tried 3 times and got it. She didn't give up, and just this week is going to be getting her master's degree in the administration of justice. And she's probably going to be starting another master's degree program. So it's really my honor, Kimmy, and mahalo for all your inspiration over the years. You've really benefited me personally, so thank you.
Thank you. Aloha, everyone. My name is Kimmy Takata, and I am going to introduce my panel to you, who are dear friends to me. And I just want to remind people that this event right here is just a stories of different people's journeys in the reentry system. And it's not to bash DCR or HPA. It's about finding a solution, right? Because we're all solution finders. So that's why we're here. We want to share our stories. We want to see where the community is at and where they can stand in the gap at, right? There's a lot of gaps in the system, right? But we can't be angry at the system. We got to find ways to, you know, create solutions. So I'm going to introduce Tricia. Me and Tricia is locked up together. We're in TLR, but she does some wonderful things. She has the organization called My Sister's Keeper. She does so many things out in the community, feed the homeless, help people, advocate for people who are transitioning out of prison. And so she's very special to my heart. And then we have Matt Taufetee, who runs the First Lap program, Life After Prison. And I'm just gonna give a brief introduction to them. They can introduce themselves after. But Matt is a dear friend of mine, and I wouldn't, you know, like, I'm so grateful for him for being in my life. But he does a lot with the men. So Life After Prison with the men transitioning out of prison, and they do a lot of things, like, but he can share. And then we have Nina. Nina has her own business. It's called Kon Kreations. It's a catering business. So if you guys hungry and you guys want to, you know, cater, right here is Nina, Kealoha. She's a dear friend of mine. Let's just say everybody here did time with me, okay? But, you know, as we look at it, yeah, looking back, you know, times have changed and the system has changed, right? And so this is Nina, and this is my sister, Dida. Dida does a lot of things. She has the Ruth House that she oversees, and she does a lot of things with the women. It's a faith-based transitional home in Wahiawa. They also have the Timothy House and other, but she can share with you. But Dida is a big advocate for women coming out of prison. She advocates for them, she takes care of them, and she kind of guides them in the right direction. So all these people here are very special to me. So can we give them a hand? Okay. So I'm gonna start asking them questions because I'm the moderator. Yeah, okay, I never need to say that, yeah, okay? Okay, so my first question to Matt. So Matt, when you think about your journey, what is one word that describes your reentry experience and why?
Was difficult because I got released back home to where that trauma occurred in my life.
Thank you. What about you, Trish?
Is that in the question number one?
Yes.
When you think about your journey, what is one word that describes your reentry? Overwhelming. It was overwhelming to just come back out into a place that I haven't been for a couple of years. Everything was overwhelming. Even just to catch the bus was overwhelming.
Yeah. What about you, Nina?
Lonely.
Lonely? Why is that?
So when I got released, it was about 18 years ago, and I didn't have family support. So when they pushed me out the gate, it was just a ban and a check, and that was it. I had to figure it out.
What about you, Dida?
It was really hard. It was a trap between, I was on a crossroads between wanting to do right and going back to what's familiar, because I came out and lost everything that was familiar to me, my support system. I just had my brother, and stepping into faith-based was very uncomfortable, especially when you come from the streets. And I really had to adjust into this new way of thinking and living.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so like looking back, what was the most challenging part of being incarcerated that people on the outside misunderstood or don't know? All of you guys.
I think that the part that people misunderstand is that they think you do your time, you just get out, you get right back into the whole swing of life. I think that they don't have an understanding that it isn't that easy to just jump right back into it. It's one thing to go from prison and then out into parole to a transition house, but there's some people that are going from prison to straight back, like Pastor Matt says, to the same place that where your crime happened. And I think people misunderstand that it's not, you have to go back to a place that's healthy, and that if there's a transition that happens with that, and it starts from prison on out. It's not just something you just go from prison and out and then boom, your life just picks up right where it left off.
For me, it's the stipulations, mandated back then was from the parole that I had to get a job. Me with no job experience, coming out of prison, and it can be overwhelming and stressful. And for most of us, we turn right back to the thing that's most comfortable, which is using. Yeah, violate, right back in prison. So I'm not sure what the statistics are as far as inmates getting released from prison. I think was 76% returned right back to prison within the first year. So that was one of the difficult things for me. Yeah.
I think for me, it's everybody has a misunderstanding that when you go in, you're automatically available to do a program. Like the program stipulations and criteria, sometimes you don't meet it. So you're kind of just sitting there until you do meet it. So it's not like we go in, we get to do our programs and we get out. Like some of us gotta sit. and then it's almost like stagnant time because you don't really get to do anything. So I think that was another one of the misconceptions.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is, especially with the parole board, is when they set your minimum, they give you a bunch of stuff that you're supposed to do. A lot of the things that they require you to do, they don't offer, right? And so we're stuck waiting for a program that has no beds. You're stuck because you may have completed majority of what they asked you to do, and you don't qualify because, some of us go in there, we're go-getters, we want to get in and do our time. But because there's people ahead of us who have less time, we keep getting pushed back on the list. Because I waited almost 4 years to do the program. The last thing that was required of me, I waited 4 years to do when I was program compliant 4 years prior. And it was all because of a release date that they gave me, right? So a lot of it was sitting around and waiting. And then you go back to the parole board and you get denied parole because you didn't complete that one requirement, even though you've done everything else. So that was one of the biggest frustrations because they expect you to complete everything that is required because it's about rehabilitation, but there's not enough programs to offer.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay, back to you, Dida, because you're the one that came out. Oh, sorry. Okay. So what were your first 30 days after release like?
Me? Oh, okay. It was really rough. I had a really hard time finding a job because of my criminal history. I got a lot of rejection. I was living at the church. I literally came home with nothing but the clothes on my back. And I struggled. I'm gonna be honest, I really struggled in going back to what's familiar or sticking this thing out because they're telling me to trust God. God's gonna provide, but yet I have nothing. I'm getting rejected from jobs. I have no money. I have to check in. I got this restitution on my back. I got all these requirements. They're giving us 45 days to get a job, and nothing is happening, even though I'm pounding the pavement. So my first 30 days was really, really, really rough.
Thank you. What about you, Nina?
My first 30 days, it was very scary for me, after coming out for as long as I had done. And then I had to learn, I almost essentially had to learn how to be a person again because I was so institutionalized. I didn't know how to catch the bus. I didn't know how to do a simple thing like use the cell phones that they had at the time. I went in 2002, I came out in 2009. So there wasn't pagers anymore. There were these little touchscreen stuffs, but I ended up getting social anxiety because I've had a panic attack on the bus, catching the bus from where I was put at, and I wasn't even supposed to be there, but they put me there. My second day out, I had to catch the bus from there all the way to Alakea by myself. So I essentially had a panic attack, but I got through it. You live and you learn, and you keep going. So it was very scary. Very scary.
For me, looking at the first 30 days, I was back out. Yeah, I was back to my gang, the things that I'm used to, drinking, partying. So I was on the verge of being violated. So when you ask that question about the first 30 days, we need to have something that can help us. And that's why I believe our program, I have 3 gentlemen over here sitting in the front row from my program, because the first 30 days is critical. What I learned is you need a support system. So the first 30 days, we attend church together, we do Bible studies every week, and we escort them to all their necessary appointments, to their parole officers, get their medical. We do all of these things with them for the first 30 days. But for me, I didn't have that going out, so I went right back to that old life, without having any support.
For the first 30 days for me was very stressful. Just like every one of them said, I think it is very important that, that you have somebody that walks through it with you, because you do get all these stipulations, you have all these rules and stuff that you have to, take on. And then you have, your kids and all of that stuff as well that you have to take on. But one thing that really did help me during those first 30 days when I was trying to find a job, but it was, just very hard, was that I had my sisters that I did time with help me during that time. Like Sister Dida was already out when I was coming out, and she had asked her job to see if there was an opening to get me a job. So being able to communicate with, the ones that I did time with helped out humongously. So, yeah.
Thank you. So this question is for everyone. So for those like us now helping other formerly incarcerated folks, what approaches have you found to be the most effective in supporting people coming home?
I would have to agree with Matt, because it was such a struggle finding, even ground. I help the women coming out of prison or even coming from the streets. And the first 30 days is the most critical. So we have what's called a sanctuary period where they're going to be home and they're going to get to know the program. And I escort them and I take them to their appointments, and I answer my phone all day at work when they're having their breakdowns and their mental health issues. And, they need support. They need somebody to literally hold their hand and tell them it's going to be okay. They need somebody to show them, like go with them to their appointment, help them fill out their paperwork, get them their medical. It's been networking because we have each other, right? The great thing is we have each other, we reach out, and we've been able to build a network that help people coming out. Now we just call each other, be like, hey sis, you got a bed? Hey sis, I got a girl who got to go program, can you pick her up? We just reach out. It's become a network of helping each other.
I believe in peers, my peers. And those peers are people that were formerly incarcerated, because I feel like if we stand with each other, then our success rate is higher, because I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be a business owner. I wouldn't be a college student. I wouldn't be debt-free if it wasn't for my sisters and brothers that are sitting with me today. Just them encouraging me every time that I can do it and that I am worth it and I'm not just an AO number. That helped me a lot, is having people that were just like me in my life.
For me, just thinking about what one of my mentors, Pastor Joan Osai, just thinking about how he mentioned that lust is taking at the expense of others to benefit self, whereas love is giving at the expense of self to benefit others. And that's why I believe, I have a heart to serve other people. And that's why I continue to reach out to our communities. Any opportunity I have, I have a ministry called Peacemakers in honor of the two men who were killed, in 1988, my victim, and because of the retaliation of the family, they took my older brother's life. So I created Peacemakers to honor them too, that continues to go into our schools, into a lot of different places, just to talk about the healing process. A lot of the traumas as kids, that happens to us as kids, we tend to take it on the outside. Hurt people hurts people. So if we don't heal from what hurt us, we'll bleed around the people who didn't cut us.
One of the things that I believe that it says, what approaches have you found to be most effective in supporting people coming home? And I really believe that knowing them already, like for us, me and my sisters that I did time with, just us knowing each other and walking that walk and then coming out and, being there for one another. But now that I'm out and I'm not doing time with the women that are there, I think the huge benefit that I have is that I get to go back into the prison and I already build the relationship with the women in there. And so when they're transitioning out, they already know who I am. They've been with me. I know who they are. They know me. And so it's more easier for them to latch on or reach out to me than it would be if they were just transitioning from prison, coming out, and then being set up with me and now I'm just a stranger. So I think that's a huge benefit that because I go back into the prison already and I build a relationship with them it's a smoother transition for them to come out and already see a familiar face.
I totally agree with that. I think for me, my healing started from the inside, right? Like they could have let me out like a year later, 1 year later or whatever. I know that I would have went back in because I did not heal, right? I didn't ask the questions when they all came in and out, in and out, in and out of the prison. Like, oh, how come you get to go? And like that comparing spirit. But I would ask them, I would stop them, and I would be like, hey, what happened? And they would say, oh, my boyfriend started using. So, really, really, literally, I asked everybody when they came out of prison what happened. And a lot of the times it is unhealthy relationships, right? I would say 85% of the time, unhealthy relationships, right? And so they, relationships can take you down. They can, make you thrive or whatever. But it's all about relationships. And for me, when I think about helping others, when I came out, I was like, I don't want to deal with them anymore. But really, God had another plan for me, and my journey was to work for the Pu'a Foundation and start this whole peer support thing, right? What really changed the way I thought about things was I know that what helps other people is listening to them, right? Because you can cut them off and you can be like, oh, yeah, but, I don't know, but I want you guys to look up this video. It's called The Nail in the Head. Okay, really look that video up. I want you to watch that video. That was me trying to tell somebody, but if you take that nail out of your head, and they didn't want to hear it, all they want us to do is listen to them, support them in everything that they have or need or whatever, let them get it off their chest, and that works. That really works.
Eventually, they take out their own nail.
Yeah, eventually, that's their job to take the nail out of their head. It's not our job to tell them, hey, you got a nail in your head, and that's why you got a headache. I don't want to hear it, right? So look up that video, The Nail in the Head. Okay, so next question. What gaps exist in Hawaii's reentry support systems that the public, did I say that?
No.
Okay. What gaps exist in the Hawaii reentry support system that the public may not be aware of or understand?
What gaps exist?
What are some of the gaps that are in the reentry system?
I would say a lot of the programs has been shut down. That's where I get to meet a lot of my men, because I got approved to go into our prisons in 2015. So I go into all of our prisons to provide programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step recovery, Bible studies, but because of shortness of staff, they cut down all these programs. So I don't get to see any of the men anymore. So these were like the last men I got to see, by doing Bible studies and these gentlemen sitting in front of me, because I get to meet these guys. And I can pretty much tell which guys are serious about wanting to change. Because everybody has a story, and I can tell who's trying to fool somebody who's been there. Yeah, so I get to meet the guys in there. So programs being shut down that I know is necessary to help these men transition safely on the outside.
Anybody else want to answer?
I would have to say, so the gap that I feel is that the public is not aware of is the family being involved in that reentry process as well, because everybody thinks it's just us doing the time, but it's actually the whole entire family that's doing the time. It's not just us, it's our kids, it's our husband, our wife, our mom, the caregiver. They're all doing the time with us, and I don't think that they are as much as involved that they should be in the reentry part, because just like I said earlier, is that people think that we're just going to get out and just jump right back into it. They don't understand the anxiety, the fear, the stress that comes with going back out. My mom, my sister, the caregivers of my kids, they thought that, I was just going to pick right back up, start caring for my kids, get a job, and be on my merry way. But they don't understand that that's not what it is. They don't understand that we have this whole list of parole stuff that we got to do and all these check-ins and stuff like that. And I think that all of that, the whole entire household has to be involved in the transition and the reentry part of the ex-offender or the offender, because everybody needs to be on the same page in order for us to have a successful reentry.
That's true. That's true.
I think for me, I think it's the lack of education in our community about reentry services. Because it is the family dynamic, but, we have transitional homes popping up everywhere. Like, my mom lives in Kapolei, and she called me the other day and was like, I think there's a halfway house over here. Like, am I safe? I'm like, I don't know. Did you knock on the door? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not trying to tell my mom to be scared, but what I'm saying is we are so stigmatized. Once a felon, always a felon. Once a criminal, always a criminal. And so I spent an hour on my phone explaining to my mom that, no, that's there to help them, Just when you walk by, say hi. They're normal people like you and me, and I think if we were to, if we pop up a transition house somewhere, let's educate that community and let them know how important it is for them to show support to these individuals. Maybe because a little bit of acceptance goes a long way,
I think reentry should be started while we're still incarcerated. It starts with programming, right? And so I think that programming should be all across the board, no matter what your custody level is. So I come from a family of convicts, and I go through it with them. I have a brother in a federal prison. I had a brother who was a long time in the mainland system, and because of his custody level, he was kept in admin seg with no programming at all. And I think that admin seg would be the best time that you program them. Okay. Give them a book other than what's in the library. Give them a reading book, a language book. Educate them. And they're writing grievances. They want to do their program, but you can't because your custody level. So you leave them in the hole and you let them max out from there with zero skills, zero job training, zero anything, and then they come back and they go back to what's familiar. It has to start in there. We shouldn't be segregated in being rehabilitated because of our custody level. You know what I mean? Maybe if there was more programming for the people in max custody and admin seg and closed custody, they would be able to change the way that they think if you're rehabilitating them in there, right? Because the only thing they allow you in there is the Bible. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe the Bible is a great thing and you should start there, but there should be other things, right? Instead of giving them free time to pass kites and plan, plan more trouble, let them program. It's the best time for them, versus those of us who they know are about to get released. Every single program is offered to us under the blue moon because we're close to our release date, but our brothers and sisters who is in, higher custody level, they're just going to sit there until the day they max out and leave the same way that they came.
That's so true. I totally agree, because when you're in prison, and you're doing lockdown time, you're running off survival. The next, you start to fish, you start to get more sneakier, and how am I going to get this staff plate or what, you're just teaching them the wrong things when they should be when I was in max custody, I was just trying to run game on everything, cigarettes, can you do this? That's all I was thinking about. I was surviving, right? So when you're constantly surviving like that and you come out into the community, what do you think we know?
Survival.
We're still surviving because at one, certain points, you're just man, I don't have money, but if I do this quick job, right? It might help me pay for my ID or whatever justification you get in your mind, right? And what everyone said here is so true. It's so true. Family is important. Bringing programs into the prison for people in max custody, PC, lockdown, admin seg, right? Because in admin seg, we don't get nothing. We just talk to each other across the cell and oh, what you guys doing? Yelling out the window, learning sign language on how to sneak this in because this ACO is working here. The kind, it's all about survival. And I don't want people to start surviving, right? I want them, like Tricia Tricia said, like to transition out smoothly, right? Family should be involved. Family caretakers should be involved with this because the one thing we're forgetting about is our parents and our caretakers that take care of our kids. They're so important and we don't really highlight them enough. But having them as caretakers, bringing them into the prison and being a part of this transition is really important. I say yes to that, you know? And so everything that you guys said was just amazing.
Can I say one more? I think one of the biggest things that I had to deal with and still deal with is the ones that are left in admin say closed custody, max custody. They're so used to being in a box that when they come home, there's social anxiety. They don't want to go to work. They're fearful of work. They don't like to be around people. They don't like to communicate because they've been segregated for so long. Getting them out of that box is a hard thing because I had one girl who literally turned her bed area, because we live dorm style, right, into a cubicle. I was like, dude, we're free now. Break it up. Right? And she just wanted to be isolated in the corner, like a corner bunk, right? And it's just getting her to talk, because we're faith-based, we go to church. She wants to sit in the back in the corner. She doesn't like people talking to her. She's standoffish. Everybody's judging her, right? The mentality is they don't know how to socialize. And so this is what they've learned. This is how they've survived. And it's really, really hard getting them integrated back into the community.
I just want to go off of that. And then when you see a woman do that, right? You see a woman do that, you know, they build their own little box or whatever. Then on the outside looking in, people are going to take that as her being rebellious, her being, wants to do her own program. When it's really, she's having a freaking breakdown. She's having a, you know, an anxiety attack. And that's what I mean by, you know, we got to get on a level of understanding where we're coming from, transitioning out. She's not rebellious. She's not trying to do her own program. She's literally freaking out and just trying to, you know, do something that she's familiar with, go about something that she's familiar with. So that's one thing that, you know, that I think is a huge thing is that, you know, when men or women are coming out of prison, like, you know, getting better to understand like what they're going through, because we do get misunderstood at times as being rebellious because of our background when we're not.
Yeah, true. We're just surviving, guys. Nah. Yeah, for real. But anyways, thank you guys. So my next question is, what should decision makers, lawmakers, judges, service providers learn from people with lived experience? What should decision makers, lawmakers, judges, service providers learn from people with lived experience? Everybody.
Oh, that's number 11.
I think
Number 11.
I think that lawmakers could definitely and should definitely lead with empathy, you know, and not punity, you know, like essentially you're not necessarily understanding everything about what they're going through, but just kind of understand that there was something there, you know, and being incarcerated is a trauma all in itself. It's a trauma all in itself, whether you coming home in 5 days or you a lifer. It's a trauma, you know.
I have something real quick. So yesterday, the compassionate release bill died, right? And so, you know, when I'm looking at compassionate release, like me formerly working at the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission, yeah? And I've seen and I've spoken to a lot of lifers that are, you know, like, I feel like policy and lawmakers should put lived experience at the table, even when you're making decisions on building a new prison. And I gotta say, I don't want another prison, but right now our prisons need help. They need help, and when you're building another prison or building another program, I feel like lived experience should be sitting at that table and telling policymakers like, brah, this is not gonna work. Like, you're putting up barriers for them. Like, you know, like, there's a lot of things that I think lived experience, we should always sit at the table, not as like, we know everything, but as mature adults and really using our lived experience on what works and what doesn't, right? That's important to me.
I have to totally agree with that, because I mean, if you're gonna make decisions and you're gonna make plans, or you're gonna talk about, you know, what's best for me, we should be on that. We should be on that panel. We should be in that room. I mean, if you're gonna be talking about what is best for my life and our life, one of us should be representing us in the room. Because how are you gonna represent people that you have no idea about? You have nothing, no clue about. That's just how I feel.
I think Governor Ige made that attempt in 2016 when he created the HCR Task Force, 85. And so I had these retired attorneys, judges, they called me up and they asked me, Matt, do you want to be part of this task force? So me with no college degrees, no good education, I was amazed that they would call an inmate with my criminal history, to be on that task force. So I know Governor Ige made that attempt, and they looked and they came and visited my facility, and they were amazed at how a faith-based clean and sober living program runs without no government funding. Yeah, so just looking at, they wrote in a report on how this can better save the state money, so to where we can support other programs that need help, like senior citizen, all the different programs for the homeless. Yeah, so my program is self-sustaining, for 24 years now. So, part of that task force, he made that attempt, but it didn't go through because the next month he came out and said, let's build this new prison.
I think that maybe the system, sometimes when things don't work out, you start scrambling for new ideas, right? And I think from experience, a lot of times we have exhausted the system. So they start judging us on what, we've always done. Okay, this is not working, cross it out, let's try this, let's try this. And I believe they're looking for solutions, and they're doing it on their own without hearing, right? So like a great example is faith-based. Faith-based is totally, we don't accept government assistance. So a lot of times we're not on the list, right? Versus clean and sober living. Clean and sober living, you go there, you do what you want, you go to an AA meeting, whatever. Faith-based, you actually have structure. But because we're not supported by the government and we don't take their funding, we're last on the list to get people, unless it's people nobody else wants, right? So they give us the ones that nobody else wants. No, this one is mental health, this one is 5 times offender, this one is a runner. No, we don't want these ones. So they're the ones who have nowhere else to go. Okay, we'll give them here because you're the last resort, right? And so they've exhausted everything for people like us who keep offending. Right, because I can't tell you how many times I offended, how many judges was tired of me, right? And so when I go to people's courts now and I see my old judge, they're like, what? No ways, I had a whole debate with one judge, like, no, I really am sober. No, I really do run the clean and sober house. No, you know what I mean? But it's because they don't see anybody with change, right? Because those of us who have changed, we don't do this kind of stuff. We're literally out there beating the streets. Nobody asked us. Right? And so, but we are the example of change. If you can do it, then they can too. We're showing you that there's another way, but also to another part is nobody likes structure, especially if the state's not paying for it, because they can't tell you who you can and cannot take and what you can and cannot do.
Awesome.
We have 2 wonderful people in the audience that can speak to the compassionate release bill. Both Kathleen and Marianne are here.
One more question, and then we can have Q&A. How's that? We can talk about the compassionate release, because I'm really mad about it. Okay, one question, one last question, and then we can have Q&A. So, let's see. What advice would you give to What advice would you give to an individual or their ʻohana navigating reentry back into the community? So what advice would you give to an individual or their ʻohana navigating reentry back into the community? And you guys do this every day. So what are some good advices that you give to the families?
For me, I would say, give me 30 days. Yeah? That's all I ask all my men. Give me 30 days. We go to church together. We go to AA meetings together. Yeah, we do Bible study. After the 30 days, see if you want to continue to do this work. Yeah? You have that opportunity to find mentors, a sponsor. Yeah? So with lived experience, I don't just speak it, I live it.
For me, it would be surround yourself with people who see you at your realest. That knows you that kind of knows you so well that they can tell when you're about to slip. Like these women here, Kimmy especially, she was pretty much my safe space when I was going through I was almost a third strike felon, and having her in my corner, Matt in my corner, I think that's when we first met, yeah. It helped me kind of refocus and reground, but it's just having people around you that can notice that you're drowning.
I had to change my whole mindset. My first year home, I literally cut off all outside connections with anybody. I just stayed grounded in the church. Crazy to say, my PO became my greatest resource, right? Because before, the only time she's calling me is if I'm on the run, or I'm about to get violated, or come take this drug test. I know you lied, you know what I mean? But she became my greatest resource. I actually went to therapy and counseling, things I said I never would do. I was too embarrassed. I'm not crazy. I'm not this. I'm not that. I started to do the things that was uncomfortable. And the first thing they told me to do was to cut out all outside resources. You need to just stay focused in the church, go to work, and rebuild your life on a solid foundation, which is Jesus, right? Because Jesus is the only thing that could work for me. And so I had to cut everyone out. I had no outside communications. I just stayed grounded until I was comfortable in reconnecting. So the first year, I just focused on work and church and rebuilding my life. And before you knew it, I was here.
Thank you.
I would have to say that, just like them, is that, you got to find yourself a good, strong support system, a good church, a home church that is going to pray for you, that's going to cover you in prayer, that's going to walk alongside you. And I truly and honestly believe that that is the only reason why I'm still out today and I'm clean and sober is I have a very strong support system, people that are constantly praying over my life and calling me on my stuff. You got to surround yourself with people who are going to call you on your stuff and not be, ashamed to do it or afraid to do it. Because, I don't want people who are going to just tell me fluff all day. I want someone who's going to tell me straight up, look, you're falling off track here. You need to get back on track or you're going to end up back in prison. So a strong support system is totally, is what I tell the women every day when they're about to get out is, who is your support system? Do you have a home church that you're going to get connected with? Who do you have in your life that's going to hold you accountable? When you leave here, or even now when you're transitioning out, do you have somebody like that right now? Because if you don't, you need to start getting one, because you are not going to make it on the outside alone if you don't.
Thank you. Wait, we have one more question. Joke. We got one more question. So all of you, how did systems, whether government, nonprofit, or community-based, help or hinder your reentry? How did systems, whether government, nonprofit, or community-based, help or hinder your reentry?
For me, similar to what Tricia said, a church came to the streets Two men came to the bar I used to party at every time. They called me out of the bar. They invited me to the church. I've been part of that church since 1996, July 28. So I'm still connected to my pastor. I found an AA sponsor. I've been sober 25 plus years. So just being around my church has helped me become the person I am today.
I think for me, it was 18 years ago is when I came out. So I want to say it was the stipulations that I was put on me. It was their stipulations. There couldn't be no alternatives. Like it had to be that. And if I had to wait to get into the program, I was violated. It doesn't matter if it was my fault or not. It had to be their way, or that's just how it goes. Like there's no wiggle room, or empathy, right, for the situation. So that's what was a hinder for me.
I think the hindrance is not having the documents and stuff that you need. One of the biggest issues I have is getting people their birth certificate, social security cards, so they can get an ID. And that process is grueling because majority of us go to prison and lose everything. And then coming out, you can't go to the social security office without an ID. You can't get a birth certificate without an ID. You can't get an ID without those things, right?
You can't get an
so
ID
you're
without
just
an
like,
ID.
Where do we start, right? I know that Halava has, you can get your ID up there now for the men, but the women's prison doesn't have that stuff, right? So that's a hindrance. I think for me, the biggest blessing is my church, only because for so long I kept crying about wanting to do good, but not knowing how. And I was literally one of those people, you have to show me how. Because to rebuild, I only know how to live this way. So I don't want to ask because of my pride. I don't want to tell you I don't got this. So I need somebody to see, right? Because now that I'm standing there, I can see the need in someone's face because you have compassion because you know where they're coming from. They don't got to ask me. They don't got to tell me. I can look in their face and know they're struggling with something. Why? Because I look like that. I had a hard time. And so now I move in compassion because I know what it's like. And I literally take them down there and do whatever we got to do to get it. But the biggest hindrance is getting identification. And a lot of times it takes a lot more than 30 days, which is the stipulated time to go get a job, right? You got to have your documents, and it's frustrating, right? Especially if you're in a clean and sober house and you got to pay rent. And you can't even get SNAP benefits without ID. You can't get CIRCA without ID. You can't do anything. So a lot of them are, stuck. Fortunately, our home, they don't require any rent of us until we get paid, until we get a job. So they meet us right where we're at, right? And I have to say I'm so grateful for that, because I didn't have the added stress of, oh my God, my rent is due. I don't have this, I don't have that. They literally provide all our needs so we can focus on getting reentry.
So I agree with Dida. The whole ID thing is huge. But so this is, I'm just going to speak from a personal place. This is not putting any housing down or anything. But I remember when I came out of prison the first time. And, if you're in this type of work, if you're in a place of you're holding authority, whether it's in a housing, you run a clean and sober house, whether you run a program, whether you're in a position of helping a case manager, social worker, if you don't have a heart for this, if you do not have a place of forgiveness, a place where you're looking at people that that they deserve a second chance, then you don't need to be in this position. Because if you're only going to see us or them as their crime, then they're only going to get as far as that. And I remember when I first came out of prison and I went to this place, and I'm not making any excuses, but I just didn't get that the staff that was there was serving from a place of that type of heart. I felt like, like it was a place, it was a heart where, they didn't care if the woman was had a successful reentry. It was just more about them and the money. And if that's the place that you're coming from, then you need to get out of that position so someone else can get up in that position and really be in that place to serve from a heart of compassion, from a heart of forgiveness, a heart of grace, because that's the most thing that we need, is that. We don't need someone looking down on us, judging us based on, what that person did or how many times we fell. When we come to you, when a person comes to you, you need to look at them as they were washed and forgiven, as white as snow. They're a brand new creation. And take that individual for who they are and what they are, not based off of this and that, or past other things, or even your own stuff. You have to address them as, with a heart of Christ, basically. So that's what I got.
Thank you. I love that. So that's our last question, and I think we have time for Q&A. If anybody has questions on Zoom, hi Zoom. If you guys have any questions, you can ask us.
We do have 2 questions on Zoom, Kimmy, but do you want to focus on the compassion law? That was
Yes, quickly.
maybe if Carrie Ann or Kat want to say something about that.
I have a microphone, so for someone who wants to say something, let me know, and I'll give it to you.
Give it to
Carry on, Kat.
Kat.
Carry on. Oh, Kat.
Aloha, and thank you so much. You're brave, and you're members of our community, and you always have been, and we welcome you. So I wanted to just hit on one thing. Everybody's talking about survival, and that's what you do when you're in a prison or a jail. And I think we need to change the language. We need people to thrive. How do you thrive in the community? How can you be all that you are in the community and kind of get rid of that cloak of stigma? So that's a problem. Well, I just came from the Puzzle Palace. It was final reading today. But, and the SNAP bill passed for people who are nearing release. So that's really an awesome thing. It passed unanimously in the Senate and it passed in the House. So that's terrific. But compassionate release was the most heartbreaking thing. I've been doing this 30 years, and it was so heartbreaking because they had, like 7 conference committees. They kept going back. And they had agreement. They had a CD1, a conference draft 1, that was ready to roll. They took the funding out of it, yet it was referred to WHAM as the prior committee, and that's the money committee. And somebody on that committee decided to not show up, so they didn't have quorum for the final vote. So it died not because the bill did not have merit. We actually got to change the bill to add the things like they had all these awful provisions about who's eligible. People life without parole, and just things that, further stigma. That all came out, and it was agreed on by the conference committee that's represented by the House and the Senate. And yet one person made that decision. And it had nothing to do with the bill. She was trying to get something else passed. And she basically did a deal. And I'm like, wow, these are people's lives. And what do you think is going to happen when somebody who's suffering from, a terminal illness, chronic illness, what do you think it's going to do? They can't even get out of bed. But we're not done.
Thank you, Kat. Brianna, you can read the 2.
Okay, so this, 2 questions. I'll start with the first one. This one's a little big, so let me know if you want me to restate it. And you guys did kind of touch upon this again, but if you can summarize, what changes are most needed to sentencing laws, population restrictions, probation and parole practices, and reentry support services that would help curb the continued criminalization of substance abuse, mental health conditions, and poverty? Big one.
Who wants to answer that? Matt?
You go first.
Or like I said, majority of the relapses, men is, they turn because they don't know how to heal from the trauma. So they turn to alcohol or drugs, which I did. So being aware of the 12-step program, whether AA or NA, and having spiritual support, that really, helps, a lot of our men, coming out. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this thing about felons, don't associate with felons. Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
I mean, you in clean and sober house, everybody's a felon. And everybody get to know each other from prison time, and coming out. So a felon cannot associate with felon, In the past, a lot of guys got violated just because of that reason. Yeah.
I think programming, right? Offering jobs, even in jail, because majority, like I said, of the higher custody levels cannot get jobs. I have to kind of compare because I did federal and I did state time. And during my prison stint on the state side, I was only allowed to work in the kitchen because of my federal detainer, which I did pick up skills. It was a great thing, but it's something I've always done. Revolving door, right? It's comfortable. When I went to the federal prison in the mainland, I got to pick a trade, stick to it, and really learn it, right? And it was something that I picked because it interests me. So I came home with a trade, and I was able to, it taught me skills up there. I get to go to work, because down here I was limited because of my custody status. But up there, everybody across the board is equal. So you get to go and pick a job and learn something new, take some classes, right? We're afforded so much luxury of programming and different jobs. And it was there that the change started for me, because I came home and got a job and stuck to the job because it's something I learned up there. While I was here in the state prison, nothing was offered but the kitchen. So what we did was we stole, we sold stuff, we hustled, we did what we always do. It's a revolving door. We're surviving. But up there, it felt like living for some reason. Where I got up, I went to school. I got up, I went to work. It was a different environment. So I'm picking up something that I could actually use in the streets. Now, if you're living in a mentality where we're going to steal from the kitchen, we're going to hustle this, guess what we're going to do in the streets? What we always do. Now, the problem with relapsing, I think, for men is because they're locked up. There's no other jobs provided. There's so many men overcrowded, zero skills picked up, zero classes. A lot of them cannot read too well, cannot write too well. So what kind of job do you think they're going to find when they come home? Dishwasher. Now, when you're washing dishes, when you're a man from the streets who've been hustling for so long, you're going to look at your first paycheck and be like, I got it better in the streets. Why? Because they were not prepared with anything better in prison because of their custody status. So I think that if we offered more, job training, some kind of skill while they're incarcerated, it might help them when they hit the streets, because dishwashing ain't going to do it.
It's so funny because I'm actually in school for that, and my essay is on de-incarcerating our prison. So I feel like rehabilitation should start in the prison, right? No matter if you're affiliated or mental health or neutral, it should happen for everybody. No matter your points or, because that's the thing, right? Inside is, their points are too high. They have too much points. So because of their points, they can't do a level 2.5 RDAP. I don't think we should have, I think there should definitely be some, structure, but I think that programs should be incentivized, and it should be individual need basis, because everybody's needs are different. Like my needs is not the same as Sister Dida's. Sister Dida's needs are not the same as Kimmy's, Everybody's needs is different, and I feel like if we can get it to where we can possibly, individualize by case basis, understand what their mental needs are, what their trauma is, what their addiction is, centralize it to work for them and not for the individuals that want it to work. but
Well,
work it for the person.
I got one more thing. I think if they offered incentives in jail, right? So like in the federal prison, you mandatory to do GED in the mainland. Once you're sentenced and designated, it's mandatory. If you don't have your GED, you have to get it, or you're not going to progress, right? But upon completion, you get some kind of cash reward. I don't know if it's not much, but it's something. Not only that, you get time off. You get time off for completing your GED. And now in the federal system, if we know we're going to get time off, guess what? I'm banging out every single program you got. Right? What, 15 days? I'm going to do this. Even if I don't know it, guess what? I'm going to ace it because I'm going to get out earlier. Right? People who's not drug addicts, they're going to say they're drug addicts so we can get the drug program and knock this much time off. You know what I mean? So if there's an incentive offered, we're going to do it. So maybe, offering an incentive. Hey, majority of our state inmates, men, don't have a GED. And a lot of them are prideful or in a gang, and they're not going to say they cannot read or write. Right? They're prideful. They're not going to sign up for GED because everybody else going to know, oh, I cannot read or write, or I don't have my GED. So they just gang bang and do what they do. But if you offer them, hey, I'll give you get 5 days off, or maybe you be considered earlier for a minimum, whatever the situation may be, but you got to have this GED. Watch how much more people sign up to get it done, even from the hole.
Exactly.
Even from the hole, they're going to be requesting their GED books in lockdown. If I'm going to get off 5 days earlier, sign me up.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe some incentives to do some of these programs might make it more, worthwhile doing. Yeah.
Because I know the state doesn't have any money.
And one more
But,
thing,
that's a great idea, like looking at incentives. I think that's important too. And how can we do that? How can we implement that into our correctional system, right? That's great. Anybody else?
A great program to model after is, Kimmy and I spoke there, Homeboy Industries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was there 2018, you were 2019. Great program you should model after is Homeboy Industry, run by Father Greg Boyle. I believe he received, I forgot that award from the president in 2024. But great program to model after, because they have all these different trades. They train each, person coming off the street in prison to have a trade that they like doing, so they have a job. Yeah, so that's a great program to model after, Homeboy Industries.
If only, yeah.
I just wanted to share this one last thing. So we can have all the programming, right? You can bring all these programming, but someone has to be strong enough to implement it. Someone has to be willing to bring it in and do it for the incarcerated. We can say all of this stuff, but if at the top, they're not willing to give it to us, they're not willing to do it, they're not willing to make the change and step in there and do it, then it's not gonna happen. And I'm always gonna brag about our warden, Mark Patterson. I'm gonna always bring him up. I'm always gonna bring up Mark Patterson, Chaplain Bonnie, Chaplain Tammy, because before he came into position at the women's prison, our recidivism rate was out of control. We had women housed in the mainland. We had women housed at feds. We had our prison in Kailua was at max capacity. And it was just like all of us was just not going anywhere. But it took somebody to come into the prison, take a stand up against whoever was trying to come up against his vision, to come in there and set and implement programs for us, implement change, implement forgiveness. It took this man to take position, and no matter what came up against him, he stood on it. He stood on it. He backed us up. He backed us women up, and he brought in programs. He brought in people who were willing to provide these programs to help better us. And without that, we can say all of this, but if the person at the top, if there's nobody that is willing to be strong enough to take a stand and say, no, we're going to do this for these people, then it ain't going to happen. So I'm always going to share about Mark Patterson, because when he was our warden, and all of us are a product of, we were all there doing time when he was our warden, except for Matt, because he's not a woman, of course.
I met him in 2014 when he found out that I was in detention home mentoring our youth.
But this man, he changed the whole game of incarceration. He didn't look at incarceration as a thing of punishment. He didn't look at us as inmates anymore. He looked at us as forgiven by the grace of God. And he looked at us as, okay, now what can we do to rehabilitate you? He brought in rehabilitation, and he did it as a place as healing. It was no longer punishment.
Be a place of healing.
Yeah, and all of us women were under him as our warden, and we're not just out here living, getting by, surviving.
Yeah, we're thriving.
Look at us, like we're thriving because a man and he had a team that took a stand and was like, no, we're gonna do this, we're gonna bring in people no matter what anybody says, and we're gonna stand on that. And he fought for us.
Yeah, he even got in trouble too, but
He fought
never
for
fell.
us. He did things that nobody else would do for us, but he did it because he cared. He had a heart for people. And now he went on to, be with the kids. But, it takes somebody with a heart to want to do it and actually care about the inmates.
Yes. Yes, Mark Patterson is amazing, I can say that the people that were in the prison while he was our warden, a lot of them are thriving, a lot of them. I can tell you right now, like the people that I talk to, on every day that was in prison while Mark was in leadership, they're thriving. Some of them get their own business, own their own homes. Like
Master's degree.
He believed in us, and I remember him saying, Kimmy, when you walk through these gates, you are forgiven. And I was like, brada, you don't even know what I did. Nobody can forgive me, right? But then I started to learn as he started to teach us, not by lecturing us or whatever, by bringing in all these, most of these people were volunteers. They came in volunteering to do these things, the aquaponics, all these other things, like he really showed us what true community looks like, right? Because we're thinking, a community like us, they think that we're criminals, right? But that's wrong. That was the wrong thing, and he taught us that our mindset, right? But yeah, that's amazing.
And there was another huge thing that he did. So behind the wall, right, is us. But he allowed the public to come inside, and he allowed us to go outside and the public to see us. So now when the public would see us on the outside, they wouldn't have that stigmatism no more. They wouldn't have that stereotype, all prisoners, all inmates are, that's all, their crime is, they're always gonna be this, they're always gonna be that. They got to know who we were. He was able to get rid of the wall and allow us to have a relationship now with the community, and they were able to see us not just for an escapee, 3-time escapee, or a crack selling addict. He allowed them to see us as now women, forgiven women, new women in Christ, women of excellence. So that wall was no longer there with him. He mended it, he brought it together. So people were able to see us for who we are, not our crime.
If I may speak on Mr. Patterson, but the one thing that I love about Mark Patterson is that he was like that with every single person he met, whether you were a 2-year or a lifer. He treated you like you were like, you already succeeded. Like you already succeeded.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next question. If we have one more question,
Yes.
or should we give it to the audience?
Does anyone let's give it to Carrie-Ann.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for your leadership and for your wisdom and for setting up this panel, because I think there's so much to learn from all of you. And I really wish that there would be people from the Department of Corrections, Parole, that would be here and will watch this later, because they have so much to learn from all of you. With that being said, I've heard from you many different strategies to help people succeed in their reintegration process. And looking at a systems perspective, we are on the cusp of theoretically potentially building a new jail, which will cost over $1 billion, and we've already spent $50 million in the planning, $15 million on Maui and throughout Hawaii, not to mention we're spending over $100,000 to incarcerate a person. So can we envision a system where that money, instead of going towards jail and construction and investing in community to divert people from the carceral system to begin with, so that people are not further traumatized, but for those who are in, to get the rehabilitation services they need, where community programs like yourselves and others do a reach-in model, and you start reentry services from day one, and then as people are transitioning out, you have that relationship, so that we fund it into the things that work and not what are barriers. And so looking at the systems change, is that something you would be supportive of, is that we invest the money in diversion, rehabilitation, reentry, instead of just building more literally cages for our community?
Yes, I totally agree. And I did this project while I was in my criminal justice program. And because I know that they're trying to create a new OCCC, I created one that's called Reentry Roast, where it's a big coffee shop. And I thought of it this way, yeah? Who wouldn't buy coffee from a prison? People all over the island would want to be curious and buy coffee. Not only that, it's a system where you can have these classes and after you're done with these classes, you can actually work and the money goes back into, your account. And yeah, also I just thought of a lot of things. People can tell their story, right? On nights, on days, like, hey, this guy gonna tell his story. People who know how to do art can sell their products, right? So this reentry roast is a hands-on, because a lot of us learn hands-on. I can learn hands-on. You can show me how to build a house hands-on and I can build it, right? But if you're doing something hands-on, cognitive, working as a team, helping them communicate correctly in a reentry coffee shop, right? People from the community would be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Then we can see them as a community and be like, wow, they were really nice to us. Okay, that stigma is gone. Like, not everybody's mean, right? Like, it's just, it's more of a hands-on program. But that's what I would love to see if they was to build another OCCC. It would be more like more freedom, a little bit, right? But you're gonna have a job, and when you get out, we're gonna connect you with the community, because the community guarantee going to be coming for get coffee. They'd be like, wow, so I don't know. That was one of my projects that I want first place in. Thank you, Jesus. But I know we're running out of time. Do we have one more? One more question. Okay, Tony.
Thank you. DCR does have a new team on their reentry, and they are represented here today as well. And they have some phenomenal people that are trying to make some terrific changes. One of those changes is that Project Vision has been hired to do reentry with women, where we're able to go into the prison and start with a number of hours working with those women on their journey to come back to the community. And so we're very grateful that we have that opportunity to begin to plan with them on their journey out of incarceration and back into the community, to help them set up with IDs, places to live, work towards getting jobs. And the peer mentoring portion is absolutely so very important, that we'd also like to begin to do a J League, which is also done on the Big Island. And it would be for justice-involved individuals to gather on a monthly basis and be able to talk and share resources, et cetera. And we'd love to share more if anybody wants to stay after. So Zena and I are here for that.
Yes, Project Vision is here, guys. They do a lot of things, dental, eye, vision, everything. So yeah, yes, go ahead.
I want to thank all five of you because of the fact that all of you have successfully transitioned from incarceration to becoming productive citizens. As a chaplain that's in the prison 5 days a week, I see exactly what goes on within the system, right? But ultimately, something that I think Kimmy talked about was the fact that you all have lived experience. And here we have decision makers that are making decisions for all of us that are incarcerated, myself included, that have no idea what it's like to be locked up. Especially when I go into the shoe, they don't know what, when you talked about somebody living in a box, literally, right? And some of them are not there 30 days. They're there for extended periods of time.
Years.
So you talked about survival. That survival mindset is something that a lot of people have a difficult time breaking. We talk about the prison mentality. That is all something that's taught within the prison system. That's how you survive within the prison system. So I think it's important for people that have lived experience to have a seat at the table. What Kat talked about, she's there all the time, right? Advocating. But at the same time, the people that are making decisions don't know what it's like. It's like somebody teaching a addiction class that has never done drugs in their life. They can't relate to what addiction is.
Yeah.
And so in order to have a synergistic system, I see something going on at Waiava right now, all right? We have the Department of Corrections, along with the Department of Human Services, bringing families, reintegrating families, teaching them how to talk, how to begin to build relationships. All of these things are important, but I truly believe that until people like yourselves there are able to get a seat at the table, the people that are spending the money and making the decisions cannot change the system. It's something that has to be done from the inside out. To see success, you talked about the coffee shop. It's a great point. Hey, you know what? The public has a stigma about people, ex-inmates. Oh, once an inmate, always an inmate for a lot of people, right? But if you're able to integrate with them, not so much integrate, but be able to do something like a coffee shop. I have no idea if that'll work, but you know what? It's never been done before. Just because it's never been done before doesn't mean we can't do it. There's so many different ideas, and I'm sure that all 5 of you had great ideas as to how to do be able to, the organizations like acronyms. When I first got into the chaplaincy, it was Department of Public Safety. Today, it's the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. But honestly, I don't see the rehabilitation going on. You guys talked about relationships, right? Building relationships. You know what? It's important for individuals that have done time to be able to talk, build relationships. But at the same time, Matt, when's the last time I saw you at Halava? A long time.
Long time, couple
No
months.
staffing, right? Chapel's been canceled. How can you build relationships? But it's a system that has to be willing to work with each other. Too many people have boundaries. These are my, this is my kuleana. Nobody's willing to work with each other. In order to successfully reintegrate men like these back into society, people have got to be able to get their walls down, and we need to be able to work together so that we can build a better
Good to see you, Sean.
So thank you, folks.
Hello, guys. My name is Bryson. But I just want to say, we just got out of prison right here. And the prison is not the same thing as was when you guys was in there. So they made this place called the gang unit, and it's module 3B or 3A. And me and Elijah and myself, they put us in a place where they separate our gangs, because we're still active as gang members. They separated us from one gang to another gang, but then they brought us all together and started war against each other because they know what it was going to cost. So these guys trying to do programs, and Uncle Matt came and saved me from the hole, and I was in the hole, and like she said, you spend many months in there. And I can barely say, it's a hard thing to be in a box, being stuck there, incarcerated. And being as naughty as I am in there is now that I'm out, I want to help as much as they do. But that's why they're asking, for help, and for people to see that people like us can change, you know what I mean? And like what Pastor is saying, we do need people like this on the board. They mean a lot to us. Like I said, we're fresh out, you know, and we have no experience of being in this life, but we have a lot of experience of being in that other one. So now we're on this other side of the fence. We have mentors, and you know, Uncle Matt's been doing me every day, like tweeting me, texting me every day. You know, my mom has been doing it every day. She's been texting me, you know, she's been there for me, you know, and it's just so far it's been good in my life, you know. And if we can do this, you know, everybody can, you know, but we need help from other people outside of this, because they can't just come up and make rules like, okay, we're gonna do this bill, we're gonna do that bill. The people that had the education that haven't learned anything from the streets, or haven't done drugs, or haven't beat somebody up, or haven't had blood on their fingers, are making all these rules for us. You know, they don't see what we see. We see change, but they see money, they see discovery, they see all this other stuff, you know, and they see, okay, we're Christian-based stuff, you know, we love God. I know we love God. Everybody loves God. Each and every one of us love God. That's the golden rule. We love each other. But we're speaking reality right now. We're living in the world. And God said this world belongs to who? The devil. You know? And with that being said, I just want to let you guys know that it's really hard out here, but if we can get help from everybody, it'll be a great opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is the end of our session here, but we just want to thank you guys for just being here and supporting all of us and just showing up. And everybody on Zoom, we appreciate you guys for showing up. I'm sorry we didn't get to answer all your questions, but you know, this was amazing. I just want to thank the panelists, Tricia, Matt, Nina, and Dida for sharing their lived experience.
Thank you, Kimmy.
Because all these people right here, amazing, just amazing. So thank you all for coming, and yeah, we'll see you next time.